Good evening, you are watching ReNEWS in English. I am Sona Tumanyan. Prime Minister of Armenia Nikol Pashinyan began the first government session after the holidays with a message of congratulations on the occasion of the established peace with Azerbaijan. He called this process a new phase in establishing peace. Prime Minister Pashinyan also stated that there is a great deal of work ahead, constructive, peaceful and creative work. The session was followed by a briefing with the Prime Minister. Pashinyan noted that they will use this format more often. The Armenian-American company will not be controlling the road, but rather managing it. In other words, it will be conducting business management, the country's prime minister said in response to a question from ReOpen media journalist Simon Hovhannisyan. Pashinyan also drew attention to the principle of reciprocity included in the Washington document, which is about mutual advantages.
We
have already agreed with Azerbaijan many times that we recognize each other's territorial integrity, sovereignty, and the inviolability of borders based on the 1991 Alma-Ata Declaration. And the Alma-Ata Declaration clearly states that the territory of the Armenian SSR is identical to the territory of the Republic of Armenia, and the territory of the Republic of Azerbaijan is identical to the territory of the Azerbaijani SSR. We have all the maps that delineate those territories, the borders. Both Azerbaijan has them and we have them. And by the way,
among the high-ranking officials from the Russian Federation, Deputy Prime Minister Alexei Overchuk arrived in Armenia yesterday. Following the historic events that took place in the US, this was the Russian side's first step towards Armenia. Overchuk met with Prime Minister Pashinyan, and according to government sources, the interlocutors addressed current topics of cooperation within the framework of the Eurasian Economic Union. The Russian Deputy Prime Minister also announced that Moscow supports Yerevan in its plans to create a transport corridor with Baku, dubbed the Trump trip, if Yerevan deems it necessary. They also touched upon the dynamics of trade turnover as well as the progress of implementing joint programs. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Mikhail Galuzin also arrived in Armenia with the Deputy Prime Minister. Yesterday, Armenia became Albania, and the pronunciation of Azerbaijan created serious difficulties for Trump during his latest phone call. We hold a special place on his splendid list of peace deals, and of course, Trump hasn't shied away from talking about it over the past week.
You saw the Azerbaijan, that was a big one going on for 35 years with Albania. Think of that. I mean, going on for years. And I got to know the heads, and I got to know them through trade. I was dealing with them a little bit. I said, why are you guys fighting? And then I said, I'm not going to do a trade deal if you guys are going to fight. It's crazy. Anyway, one thing led to another, and I got that one settled, and that was...
The Ministry of Defense of the Republic of Armenia reports that on August 20, the solemn closing ceremony of the Eagle Partner 2025 Armenian-American military exercise was held. The exercise was conducted in Armenia as part of preparations for participation in international peacekeeping missions. The leadership of the exercise thanked the personnel for their effective cooperation, the successful implementation of the joint drills, and the exchange of experience. As the signing of various documents marks the beginning of the Minsk Group's dissolution, yesterday the National Assembly of Artsakh appealed to the OSCE participating states, requesting that they do not dissolve the Minsk Group until strong guarantees are established to ensure the safe and dignified return of the displaced Armenian population of Nagorno-Karabakh. The statement says that the conflict cannot be considered resolved as long as an entire people remains uprooted and deprived of its inalienable rights. We're now working on a draft for a new constitution, and when it is ready, we will most likely go to a referendum, Nikol Pashinyan noted at a morning briefing. He added that if it suddenly turns out that a referendum to amend the constitution could have an impact on peace, the peace will not be against discussing it. According to the Prime Minister, if our constitutional court decides that the peace agreement, which has now been initialed and will eventually be signed, has contradictions with the constitution, I myself, Nikol Pashinyan, will initiate constitutional amendments. At this moment, there is no need or necessity to think about that. End of the quote. The topic of constitutional reforms has been covered by my colleague Monica Hayroyan.
Azerbaijan is once again demonstrating that striking a deal with it is pointless. After the Armenia-Azerbaijan-US trilateral meeting, Ilham Aliyev declared that he is supposedly ready to sign a peace treaty at any moment, but that Armenia still has homework to do in the form of changing its constitution.
When the issue of Armenia's constitutional changes appeared on Azerbaijan's agenda, it became clear that their main issue is with the preamble of the constitution. However, it must be noted that the preamble cannot be altered through simple amendments. Technically, changing it requires the adoption of an entirely new version of the constitution. In other words, a completely new constitution.
In Article 4 of the agreement, it is written in black and white, the parties shall refrain from interfering in each other's internal affairs. And what is the demand to change the supreme law if not interference?
A country's constitution cannot be a subject of political bargaining, and no state has the right to interfere in another country's internal affairs by forcing it to be used as a political bargaining tool.
The executive branch cannot change the constitution. This process requires public participation. A referendum is necessary, and only the people can decide whether or not to change the constitution. But there are many what-ifs here. If the public votes against the changes, what happens then? Will the agreement ultimately not be signed?
A legally undefined condition has been placed not on Pashinyan, but on the people of Armenia themselves. If the people do not vote in favor of Aliyev's desired constitutional changes, then, in essence, unpredictable consequences could arise.
According to Hasmik Hakobian, a member of the Civil Contract QP faction, the constitutional change has no connection with the demands put forward by Azerbaijan, as it has long been planned as a priority in the government's program.
A commission had even been established, but its work coincided with the coronavirus pandemic and the war, which led to the process being postponed. Now, a new commission has already been formed and is working towards constitutional changes. The essence of the new amendments relates to the relationship between the Constitution and the citizen. Our citizens must have the opportunity to truly shape their constitution through free and fair elections.
According to critics, some of Baku's preconditions have already been accepted, and there is no guarantee that removing the reference to the Declaration of Independence from the Constitution will lead the neighboring states to a safe harbor of peace. Monica Hyroyan, ReOpen Media.
During a meeting in Minsk with his Iranian counterpart Masoud Pezeshkian, President of Belarus Alexander Lukashenko welcomed Iran's involvement in the trade and economic processes of the Eurasian Economic Union. He noted that the launch of the full-fledged free trade agreement between the EAEU and Iran expands the geography of trade relations. Lukashenko emphasized that Iran is urging them to more actively use the Russia-Armenia-Iran-Persian Gulf logistics route, and that this is precisely what Belarus needs. According to him, the long-term strategic partnership between Iran and the EAEU will strengthen the economic security of all participants. And while the wave of discussions about Pezeshkian's visit has not yet subsided, my colleagues have summarized the Iranian president's visit with experts. Let's watch.
Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian shared his concerns on his ex-microblog.
During the meeting with the Prime Minister of Armenia, I emphasized that it is the conviction of the government of the Islamic Republic of Iran to preserve Armenia's sovereignty and territorial integrity, and to continue the friendly relations between the two countries, and that our concerns regarding the presence of third-party forces near our common borders must be fully dispelled.
The Iranian president's concerns have intensified following statements from Washington. Nicole Pashinyan and Donald Trump had announced the possibility of American control over the road passing through Syunik. Although yesterday, Nicole Pashinyan stated that in terms of security, the road will be under Armenia's control.
Therefore, the visit of the Iranian president to Armenia, although a very appropriate step, was, I believe, a bit late, and it should have happened sooner. Because in any case, the Caucasus is Iran's neighbor, and developments in this region are of great importance and value to Iran.
According to the expert, many actors in the region have tried to create a foothold for themselves, or perhaps to strengthen an existing one. He notes that before 2020, Iran was reconciled with Russia's presence in the Caucasus, but now it is pursuing a more independent policy.
Well, both Iran in its northwestern region could suffer from these separatist and nationalist ideas, and Russia in the North Caucasus region and its central regions, known as the Urals, could in fact suffer serious damage from the consequences of this policy and the idea of Great Tehran.
According to the Caucasus expert, after the war in Ukraine ends, it seems Russia will intervene more actively in regional affairs because it cannot allow a NATO foothold to be created in the region through the Israeli-Azerbaijani rapprochement. On the eve of the president's visit, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, in a published article, greatly emphasized the role of Iran's Armenian community in deepening the friendship between the two peoples. According to Andronik Simonyan, head of the Department of Armenian Language and Literature at Tehran's Azad University, the Armenian community in Iran is respected and valued, even though the country is a theocracy.
When the Supreme Leader speaks to the country, he says millennia-old Armenian-Iranian relations. That is already the final word. That is, if we look at it from a state perspective, even if we look at it from the perspective of religion, that today it is a theocratic country where religion rules, ministries, various things come and go, different presidents are elected, then ministries are formed, then they create their own system. In these relations, Armenia is held in very high regard.
But of course there is Azerbaijan, which shares the same religion as Iran. However, according to Simonyan, at the expert level, the Iranian government is now often blamed for its silence during the 44-day war and for maintaining good relations with Azerbaijan. This is because, at least during that period, it was obvious to experts that Azerbaijan was helping Israel carry out military operations against Iran. Simon Hovhannisyan, Pouya Hosseini, ReOpen Media.
U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance believes that a face-to-face meeting between Putin and Zelensky could resolve territorial and security issues, but there is no optimism in Moscow about such a meeting. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that the probability of a meeting by the end of August is zero, and afterward is extremely low or non-existent, calling the summit a fantasy of Trump. Regarding new development in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, an air alert was declared across all of Ukraine last night. Russian forces launched a massive attack on targets in Ukraine, including Kyiv. Lviv was also hit by the attacks, where one person was killed and 3 were wounded. Others reported that private homes, non-residential buildings, and vehicles were damaged. In Zaporozhye, industrial infrastructure was damaged. The Israeli army has announced that it is calling up about 60,000 reservists as part of the plan to capture the entire city of Gaza. French President Emmanuel Macron has warned Israel that capturing Gaza could only lead to disaster for both peoples and throw the entire region into the vortex of a prolonged war. And while yesterday I was speaking about the Russian-Azerbaijani escalations, today we will watch an in-depth report on this subject.
Major infrastructure of Azerbaijan's SOCAR in Ukraine is being targeted by Russian drones, particularly after the explosion of 17 SOCAR storage facilities in Odessa. Baku reacted very sharply, seeing an anti-Azerbaijani signature in Russia's actions. In an interview with a media outlet, Azerbaijani Member of Parliament Rasim Musabekov addressed the incident, describing Russia's actions against energy facilities as a violation of international law and an act of indirect aggression against third countries.
Russia says that it is destroying the energy infrastructure through which Ukraine, including its armed forces, receives fuel and the energy resources they need. But despite all this, Russia had previously refrained from striking SOCAR's infrastructure, and we had warned Russia not to do it.
Baku is using the situation surrounding Russia to strengthen its positions on both domestic and foreign fronts. The euphoria of victory that formed in Azerbaijani society after the 44-day war is gradually fading, and Aliyev's regime needs a new image of an external enemy to divert the population's attention from economic and especially social problems and to suppress internal discontent.
Well, on the other hand, there was a warning, as Azerbaijan had imposed a voluntary embargo on arms supplies to Ukraine. And why not? Why not supply them? Russia was supplying weapons to Armenia at a time when it was waging war on Azerbaijani territory. During the 44-day war, $1 billion worth of weapons and ammunition were delivered across the Caspian Sea and through Iranian territory to Armenia, which was waging war on Azerbaijani territory.
Musabekov sees no problem with Azerbaijan selling weapons to Ukraine, especially since it has surplus armaments, including Soviet-era and captured or trophy weapons. Musabekov also recalls the approximately 100 tanks, aircraft, and artillery systems that Ukraine once sold to Azerbaijan.
Well, in any case, for now, various types of sanction-related appeals and requests are being made to Azerbaijan. There are certain requests, appeals to Azerbaijan, and accordingly, Azerbaijan will respond to these appeals, both from Gazprom, Rosneft, and Lukoil. So Russia's actions will not go unanswered.
According to experts, this increased activity by Azerbaijan aims to strengthen its position in the West as a reliable partner. Konstantin Zatilin, first deputy chairman of the State Duma Committee on CIS Affairs, periodically repeats that Azerbaijan is not a reliable partner for Russia, and those who believe in a strategic partnership with it are mistaken. Kirill Kabanov, head of Russia's National Anti-Corruption Committee, is confident that the Russo-Azerbaijani escalation has reached a new point following President Aliyev's overtly anti-Russian rhetoric, in which he expressed support for Russia's enemies.
That country and its leadership openly support our enemies, take an anti-Russian stance, and are part of an anti-Russian system which is mainly controlled by London and Ankara.
This reorientation, highlighted against the backdrop of escalating Russian-Azerbaijani relations, aims not only to deepen ties with European countries, but also to secure a strategic advantage over Russia. However, these steps by Baku are provoking a sharp response from Russia at both propaganda and practical levels, which indicates a further deepening of Russian-Azerbaijani tensions.
And to sum up the broadcast, one of the world's richest people, LVMH chief Bernard Arnault, is planning to turn the historic Atalani Palace in Italy into his personal residence, reports People Talk. The ancient castle, famous for its Leonardo's vineyard, is currently undergoing full restoration worth 1.3 million euros. The palace, located in the heart of Milan, is considered as a rare example of Renaissance architecture. The villa was built in the 15th century and in 1498, after seeing Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper, the Duke of Milan, Ludovico Mora, gifted the palazzo and its adjacent vineyard to the artist. The people thus began to call the entire estate Leonardo da Vinci's villa. Rumors suggest that he intends to turn the villa into his personal residence, or to create an LVMH cultural center where private parties and exhibitions will be held. Previously, there was also talk of moving the headquarters of LVMH, which includes brands like Louis Vuitton, Christian Dior, Givenchy, Fendi, Celine, Loewe, Sephora, and others to Milan, but the management of the fashion company had denied. That's much for today. I'm Sona Tumanya. Stay informed with ReNewS. Goodbye.